I just met a Karen who tried to evict me from my own first-class seat before the plane even left the gate. I had just scanned my boarding pass, 1A, first-class window seat, when she snapped her fingers at the flight attendant and said, "Excuse me, there must be a mistake. People like him don't sit up here. No turbulence, no engine roar." Just that sentence, sharp as a broken tray table. I didn't react. I never do. Not when drunk passengers think they can open exit doors mid-flight. Not when someone tries to smuggle a snake in a duffel bag. Yes, that happened. And not when a self-appointed sky cop decides she's the gatekeeper of row 1. Because I'm not just a passenger. I'm the Federal Air Marshal assigned to this flight. Badge in my pocket. Clock in a locked holster under my blazer. Tickets paid by Homeland Security. Not loyalty points. But she didn't know that. Quick note. If you like watching entitled people get legally outplayed, make sure you're subscribed. I post true justice stories like this every day. She just kept going, louder now, voice like a squeaky overhead bin. First class is for business travelers. Not whatever he is. If he walks up here, I'm asking for the captain. I pay too much money to sit next to... She never finished that sentence. The flight attendant gave her the kind of smile they teach at mandatory de-escalation workshops. Polite. Frozen, unblinking. "Ma'am," the attendant said. "He's in the correct seat." Karen's jaw tightened like a seatbelt before takeoff. She didn't move. She just angled her body so the aisle was hers. Legs, tote bag, ego. The line behind me grew. People sighed. Someone muttered, "Come on." The boarding door timer beeped, those beeps that mean if we don't push back soon, the flight crew times out and everyone sleeps in the terminal. Still, she stayed planted, so I stepped forward, calm, steady, voice low enough for only her to hear. "Ma'am, I need to get to my seat." She turned, eyes narrowing, like she'd just caught a raccoon rifling through her trash cans. I said, "First class isn't for people like you, not angry, not drunk, just loud, entitled, and convinced the world." Came with assigned seating based on her opinion. Fine, I took one step closer, but not with the tone of a passenger, with the tone of someone who can legally detain you at 30,000 feet. "I'm going to sit down now, and you're going to let me." "We'll talk after we're in the air," she scoffed. "Oh, really? And who exactly do you think you are?" she asked, so I showed her, didn't flash the badge like a movie cop. Just a quick practiced reveal. Silver crest, federal seal, no words. Her face dropped like landing gear. The tote bag vanished from the aisle. She backed up so fast she hit the armrest of 1B. "Oh, I didn't know." Of course she didn't. I placed my carry-on overhead, smooth, no bite in my voice, no lecture. Just a procedure, but the flight wasn't airborne yet. And she hadn't learned anything, because ignorance doesn't go away when the cabin lights dim. It just gets quieter until it doesn't. What she didn't know? She had already interfered with the boarding process. She had already caused a recorded delay in the flight log. And she had already targeted a federal officer based on appearance, on camera. And every airport terminal is saturated with cameras. So when she sat down next to me, yes, next to me 1B, and started whispering apologies she didn't mean, I already knew this wasn't over. Not after takeoff, not after landing. Not after the captain's "welcome to cruising altitude" speech. Because just like HOA bullies back on the ground, Sky Karens always escalate, and I already had the first piece of evidence, timestamp 6:42 p.m. Gate C12 boarding delay caused by passenger in seat 1B. Logged. Next stop. The confrontation she never saw coming. The moment we reached cruising altitude, she leaned toward me like we were old friends who just had a misunderstanding. Her voice dropped, but the attitude stayed. "Listen, I didn't mean anything by it. I just thought you were, well, out of place." Out of place. That phrase wasn't new. Shareway boards use it when they don't want a ramp in a driveway. Karen neighbors use it when they accidentally mow 1 foot past a property line. And now this airborne version was using it at 32,000 feet, with a cocktail napkin tucked under her nails like a flag of surrender. I didn't answer. Air marshals don't small talk mid-mission, but she wasn't done. Bullies rarely stop after the first shove. They pause, reset, and push in a new direction. "I mean, you people don't usually sit up here. I thought maybe you snuck in or something." There it was again. That little verbal tripwire, "you people." She said it like a zoning violation. Flat, official, self-justified. I turned my head just enough for eye contact. "Ma'am, you're speaking to a federal officer. Every word you say from this point matters." She froze, but not from respect. From calculation. The kind of pause where a person tries to decide if they should backpedal or double down. She chose double down. "Oh, don't threaten me. I know my rights. I watched a whole YouTube video about air marshals. You can't arrest people for talking." Wrong. Incorrect in more ways than the seat she believed she deserved. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Because the flight attendant walked by, saw the tension, saw her leaning in and subtly tapped her tablet. That tablet records passenger incidents by seat number. Digital paper trail. Chain of custody starts before anyone reaches baggage claim. Karen didn't notice. She was too busy unwrapping her pretzel pack like it owed her money. But I noticed, and I logged the next point in my phone notes. X:58 p.m. Seat 1B. Verbal harassment continues. Witness FA-3317. Tablet notation confirmed evidence, just like HOA meetings. Just like boundary disputes. You don't fight big mouths with emotion. You beat them with records. The captain made his calm announcement, seatbelt signs off, drink service beginning. And that's when she flipped to phase 2, social sabotage. She waved a flight attendant over. "Excuse me. I'd like to request a seat change. I'm not comfortable sitting next to him." She didn't whisper it. She performed it, like she wanted other passengers to hear. The attendant glanced at me first, protocol, then replied, "Ma'am, the cabin is full, and you are seated next to a federal officer. You are safe." Translation: "Stop digging." But Karen only heard the first half, "Out, the cabin is full," and that meant no escape hatch for her ego. So she tried one more tactic. Public baiting. She raised her voice, just enough to carry to row 2. "I guess anyone can just buy a first-class seat now. Standards really are dropping." There it was. The pivot from "you don't belong to the system" is broken, because you're here. I let her talk because the longer she spoke, the clearer the violation, and the flight attendants were now keeping distance and logging everything. But the real escalation came 3 hours in, mid-flight, when the seatbelt sign turned on for turbulence. She unbuckled, stood up and reached, her hand over my tray table to grab the call button above, me leaning across my shoulder, that move alone crossing, into my physical space while ignoring the safety. Order is a federal interference charge. I caught her wrist gently, just enough to stop the reach. "Sit down, ma'am, now." She yanked her arm back like I'd burned her. "Don't you touch me. I'll have you arrested." She said that to me. The literal law on board. The cabin went silent. Even row 4 paused their movie. I pulled my badge again. This time held it steady, visible. Final warning. "Sit down. Buckle in. You're interfering with an active air marshal." Her face drained. Not embarrassed. Terrified. Not because she respected the badge, because she finally understood. This wasn't a customer service complaint anymore. This was now a documented infraction on a federal flight, tied to her name, her seat number, and her credit card. She sat. But her fate didn't, because after landing, air marshals don't just walk off planes. We file reports. We request airport police. We review footage. We contact TSA enforcement, and I already knew. She wasn't walking off this plane like a free-range Karen. She was walking off into a very different kind of first class. The wheels hit the runway at 9:14 p.m. Smooth landing. No applause. Just the quiet tension of a cabin that had witnessed too much entitlement at 500 mouth. Karen pretended to sleep during descent. Chin tucked. Eyes closed, hands folded like she was auditioning for Innocent Passenger of the Year. But I wasn't watching her. I was watching the front galley door. Because before we ever reached the gate, the lead flight attendant had already called ahead. "Passenger interference, seat 1B. Request law enforcement presence at Jet Bridge." That's standard protocol. Not for bad language, not for rudeness, but for ignoring crew instructions during an active seatbelt order and making physical contact in a restricted zone. Karen thought the flight was the whole story. She didn't realize the real showdown always happens after the seatbelt sign turns off. The chime sounded. People stood. Overhead bins popped open with the rhythm of impatient fingers. Karen sprang up fast, too fast, grabbing her tote like she expected a clean escape. She leaned toward me, whisper hissed, "I'm leaving first." "And you're not saying a word?" I didn't reply. I didn't need to, because right outside the door, visible through the slit between the curtain and fuselage, stood 2 airport police officers and a TSA Federal Security Director. Not there for me, there for her. Passengers shuffled forward row by row. When it was our turn, I stayed seated. She took 1 step past the curtain, then froze. "Ma'am, we need you to step aside," one officer said, voice flat as runway lights. She blinked. "What? I haven't done anything!" The flight attendant, calm, professional, handed the officer a printed incident report, Seat 1B. Non-compliance, harassment and interference with a federal officer. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. For the first time all flight, she had no script. The TSA director turned to me. "Marshal, you good?" I nodded. Chain of custody confirmed. My written statement would follow within 24 hours per DHS protocol. Karen tried one last pivot, the "I'm the victim" card. I didn't know he was an air marshal. He didn't look like one. The TSA director actually laughed once. One of those quick exhales you only hear when someone is out of patience and out of sympathy. "Ma'am, that sentence is going in the file exactly the way you said it," she gasped. Because she finally understood. This wasn't a customer service note. This was federal documentation with her name, her booking number, and her behavior attached. She looked at me like I was the one wrecking her life instead of the one who warned her, twice. But that's how Karens work. They start as the hero of their own story, then turn into the victim when the law walks in. The officers escorted her down the jet bridge, not handcuffed, but not free either. Secondary screening room statement, possible fine, possible federal charge, at minimum. She's now flagged in the TSA database for disruptive passenger behavior. That means random screenings, no fly review if she repeats. And yes, loss of trusted traveler status. Goodbye, TSA pre-check. Hello, barefoot line with the rest of the world. I walked out last, as protocol requires. Badge back in pocket, calm heartbeat. Another file closed, but at baggage claim. Something almost poetic happened. A businessman from row 3 walked up and said quietly, "I didn't know air marshals were still around." I smiled. "That's the point." He nodded. Then added, "She really thought she could bully her way through first class." I shrugged. "People like her always think the rules are written for other people. They just forget rules come with enforcement," he laughed. Walked off. I waited for my government-issued carry-on. No applause, no movie ending. Just the quiet satisfaction that the system worked the way it was designed. She tried to gatekeep status. She ended up on a watch list instead. And the lesson? Doesn't matter if it's a cul-de-sac HOA or a Boeing. Try 7. The moment someone tries to police who belongs there, already out of bounds. Respect is the real first class. Everything else is just seat numbers. If you've ever dealt with a Karen on land or in the air, drop your story below. And if you like justice served at cruising altitude, you know what to do.